Yes, you are now listening to the sounds of Sports Reports as Ordered. And yo, it's me, your unorthodox statistician holding it down. Mr. Logical got some important things to get to. Go win that championship. But tonight we got picks. But of course, I'm going to start it off with get it off my chest. So do me a favor out there. Like, review, subscribe, rate, share. Do all the free things. Do all the good things. So, yo, get it off my chest. You know, staple of the show, always something on our mind. So I'm going to share with you what's on my mind. Something that was on my mind, let's say, a year and a half ago. So during the summer before last season, Giannis Antetokounmpo made a comment along the lines of, hey, if we're not winning here, then I got to go somewhere else. Paraphrased, of course. He basically said that if we're not winning championships, why am I here? So it was on that day that I came on and I said, yo, it's time for the Bucks to trade him. This never ends well. You know, as soon as you hear your star player start talking about, I just want to win. He's talking to the front office. He's sending a memo to the front office saying, you're not doing your job. But the only problem is the Milwaukee Bucks did their job. They went and got him Damian Lillard when everybody thought that Dame to Miami was imminent. Right? You know, the problem is his buddies are injured and older. So Chris Middleton hasn't played this season, probably out until next month, you know, with an ankle surgery. So he's 33 years old. He's been hurt the last couple of years. Okay, Brook Lopez, you had a chance to get off of him last year. He was a free agent. You had a chance to let him walk. Now he's 36, looking trash out there. Milwaukee doesn't look like they like each other. They don't look like they want to play basketball together. They don't look like they have an identity, which is crazy to me because they have a veteran seasoned coach in Glenn Rivers, even though he shouldn't be a head coach anymore because he's super overrated. But anyway, so Giannis, everybody loved Giannis because he had that old school feel to him, right? You know, I don't practice with these guys. I don't spend my summer with these guys. These are the enemies and I'm trying to beat them. Okay, cool. You're not like them, except you are. Because not only did the Bucks go get you Dame Lillard, they got you some shooters this offseason. Gary Trent Jr., for example. Not only that, they gave you the head coach you wanted in the first place, Adrian Griffin. Fired Budenholzer after a playoff series this week after his brother passed away. You wanted Adrian Griffin. He came in there. He had things going 30-13. He brought a new defensive style that he learned under Nick Nurse in Toronto, which, by the way, won a championship. And I guess, you know, he was a little unseasoned. So, you know, he was not calling the right plays, allegedly. Giannis was trying to show him up in public at the scorer's table. He got fired. So now, which one is it? You wanted him. You got him fired. You got Dame. How many other teams have gone out here and got their superstar, a player the caliber of Dame? You know, so Giannis has showed that he's just like everybody else. He signed this extension, 3-year, $175 million, that takes him through 2028. And of course, after these guys sign extensions, then comes the trade talk. And now we got Joel Embiid out here saying some things, you know, like everything I've done for this city. You get to a point where you run your mouth too much that you can't go back home. So, a new week in the NFL. Time for some new picks. It's that time of the show. We're going to take it from the top with the Dolphins and the Bills. I don't need to hammer home that Josh Allen owns the Bills. Right? 12-2 in his career against them. We saw this matchup earlier in the season. Unfortunately, that was the night that Tua got taken out. And of course, you know, DeMar Hamlin, laid the hit that took him out. So Dolphins season is on the line right here and right now. Is it over? They have to win this game if they have any chance of winning the playoff, or maybe not. We'll see. But Buffalo, on the other hand, is in a position where they could put a stranglehold on the division. Already beat the Jets, already beat the Dolphins. This would be a sweep. They would be 3-0 in conference. And what, New England going to beat them? Really? So that's where we are right now with the Miami Dolphins. So Tua came back last week. He looked pretty good, 28 of 38, 234 and a touchdown. But it's the defense, right? Good against the pass, except for deep passes. So you look at the stats, and the stats show you a good defense until the other team decides to go bombs away. So they handle all the underneath stuff. You want to run a slant, they'll stop you. You want to run a curl, they'll stop you. You run a post, it's over with, right? And, speaking of overrated Jalen Ramsey, so Mike McDaniel 1-4 against Buffalo. And here's the problem. They're in this position because he couldn't architect an offense that didn't have Tua in it. So last week, back to my point about their defense against Arizona. Now, this ain't even Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or somebody. We're talking about Kyler Murray. Play yards over 10 yards, passes over 10 yards. He was 10 of 13, 192 yards and 2 touchdowns. Josh Allen got a cannon. He's going to throw that ball. And more or less, Sean McDermott knows how to stop Mike McDaniel's offenses. We saw all the turnovers back in that early season matchup. And, by the way, just in case you were wondering about Buffalo's defense, Von Miller is back from his suspension now. So I want to say that the Dolphins can win this game just because they need it. But it doesn't always work that way. I want to be 6'2", but it just didn't happen that way. I miss my hair. So you know what, Dolphins? I'm sorry. You're going to get a lot of Josh Allen over your head, even though Amari Cooper is questionable. But I think Buffalo's in a good groove right now, getting ready for Kansas City in a couple of weeks. So I expect Buffalo to win along the lines of 27-23. Taking it to the North, the Lions invading Lambeau Field. They've won 4 out of the last 5 at Lambeau, which is atypical because Green Bay's won 24 out of the last 29 against the Lions at Lambeau. So this is a crazy heater that Detroit is on right now. Jordan Love is questionable. The groin is injured again. Will we see Malik Willis? If we see Malik Willis, we don't need to have a further conversation. We're just going to pick the Lions. But if Jordan Love plays, there's something that he brings to that team. I don't want to call it swag, but he has control of the team, and they respond to him. Now, he will throw some picks, whether he's injured or not. So you got to take the gift and the curse, right? So Jared Goff has to protect the football. I have a concern in this game. My concern is that when I looked at the weather, it looks like this game is going to be played in the 50s. So these guys, Jared Goff, Kenny Pickett, dudes like this that have these small hands, could the cold weather make that football a little harder to grip? Now, granted, we're not talking about 20 degrees, but Green Bay always missing the people they need. Is Jair Alexander going to play? This defense is very opportunistic. Same way with Detroit. They either get turnovers or you can score on them, unless you're the Tennessee Titans. So, as I look at this is going to be Josh Jacobs' moment to show Green Bay why they brought him in. Now, as I look at this, I take it back to their previous matchups. Detroit's offensive line has been physical. They've been aggressive, and they've been giving Green Bay some trouble over the years. But I just don't know this time. I think the Packers defense is playing well enough, forcing these turnovers, that is going to keep them in the game. So Detroit is not going to just walk away with this game. So give me Detroit, and I'm going to call it 31-24. So then you take it to my team, right? You take it to the Scamanders playing against the Giants up in New Jersey. Now, we saw this matchup earlier this season, and if the Giants had a kicker, they would have won that game. So, you look at it and it just, the Giants play the Commanders too well. I almost said that R word, but they play the Commanders too well. So, the problem with that is that when you have a secondary like Washington's, even Daniel Jones can take advantage of you. Now, their rookie running back, Tracy, he's injured. He's got a concussion, so we're going to see some Devin Singletary. Had a good game against Washington last time. But I think that Jaden Daniels has found his groove as a rookie. I think he has command of this offense. And I think that the Commanders are just going to win this game, and I'm going to call this one, let's call it 28-10, because I just don't see how the Giants move the ball. They're 31st in offense, so, at this time, I'll get to Penn State here in a little bit. Hold on. We're talking about the NFL right now, but, I think that the last time Washington started 7-2, I was 15 years old, and I sit here as a 43-year-old man. So that tells you everything you need to know about Washington over the last couple of years. But I believe, I was struggling. I didn't want to jump on the bandwagon yet because they've let me down before. And, but I'm a believer now. The Baltimore game, even though they lost it, gave me something to believe in because of how competitive they were. So, I think that the Commanders are the best team in this division, and they're going to prove that by beating on the last team in the division. So, Denver and Baltimore. This is going to be one of those games that you don't know how to call because either the Ravens are going to win by 30. Remember last year, Detroit came in there, smacked them around 38-3. Denver has been fortunate to play against the teams that they've played against. To me, they have the best defense in the league, even though Tennessee is number one in in total defense right now. So you look at this game, and it obviously going to come down to Lamar Jackson. Can the Ravens get something out of their receivers? Are we going to see Deontay Johnson, who they just picked up? So that was a good pickup from the standpoint of it gives you a deep threat. It gives you another receiver that you don't have to rely on, say, Nelson Aguilar. But I don't know if we're going to see that this week. Derrick Henry scoring a touchdown in every game, that's going to continue. So when I look at Denver, though, Bo Nix, they've beat up on the Jets. They beat up on the Raiders. They beat up on the Panthers last week. So at what point can we tell if Denver is for real? So, this is the week to prove it. And it's the same thing that I said when they played the Commanders. I'm not looking for a win. I just want to see you be competitive. So the Ravens, this is where the rubber meets the road. Number one in the league in yards per play. Broncos number one in least given up. So they have Baltimore has the number one rushing defense, mixing up coverages. That's what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to show some zone, show some blitz, get Bo Nix thinking, get that mind going. He's a rookie still. He still hasn't played against these type of teams, even though Baltimore can be had in the secondary. So that's why I think this game can be closer than expected. So I'm going to give the Broncos a slight chance here. And I'm going to call this one a low-scoring game. I'm going to call this one 19-14 Baltimore. Yes, they are, Mike. What's up? One Mike podcast, y'all. Dropping those gems. And don't forget Black on Black News. Check them out. It's my guy. Then you got the Raiders and the Bengals. I don't think I need to say too much about this one. Let's just go Cats. The Bengals, season on the line as well. 3-5 right now. Got Baltimore on Thursday Night Football. The last thing you want to do is come out here and play bad against somebody like the Raiders. T. Higgins is out again. Zach Moss is out. Though I don't know exactly what he provides anyway. Chase Brown has taken over that job as I predicted at the beginning of the season. So here we are, Saints and Panthers. Remember week 1, 47-7? I wanted to pick the Panthers so bad because I just wanted to have a clever line when I was on here. I wanted to say something like, Derek Carr said he wasn't the savior, and I was going to say, but you ain't a winner either. But I can't even do that because the Panthers are that bad. So the Panthers, it's looking like Bryce Young is going to start the rest of the season. Andy Dalton had the injury in the car accident, so they pulled him out last week. I just don't know if you can keep yo-yoing him as far as you're starting this week. 2 weeks from now, we're going to bench you again. So they got to let the guy play. You got to see what you have. And I'm tired of he's not ready. He's a bum and all this kind of stuff. Guess what? You hired an offensive head coach. You went and got Tampa's offensive coordinator, who people are crediting for turning around Baker Mayfield. So I'm not saying he turned around Baker Mayfield. That's what people are saying. I'm just saying, if that's the credit that you're receiving, show me something with Bryce Young. Show me something. How about finding Xavier Leggett? But I'm going with the Saints. I think it'll be a little closer this time just because I don't know what the Saints are about. And before I even go there with my score, that's jumping out on the ledge because every game that Carolina's lost this year, they've lost by double digits. But I'm going to show a little faith. And I'm going to call it, say, 21-13. Rams and Seahawks. How will the West be won? If you look at the West standings, everybody is 4-4 except for the Rams at 3-4. I'm expecting DK Metcalf to come back this week, so that'll be a feather in Seattle's hat. But Seattle's defense leaves a lot to desire, especially against the run. And the Rams have a guy by the name of Kyron Williams. Now, Puka Nacua, is he going to play? He's back injured with the knee, so we'll have to see how that goes. But Cooper Kupp is here. The safety valve, that's what Matthew Stafford needed. So I'm not saying that he doesn't need Puka. I'm just saying that as long as he has Kupp, he has someone that he can trust on third down. He has someone that he could trust in big moments. Now, Geno has been up and down this year. He passed for a lot of yards, but he just doesn't make good decisions. And when you look at last week against Buffalo, you see these things that Seattle's doing, fourth down, and on the snap, he gets his foot stepped on and falls. So I think Seattle's at a point where we don't know how good they are, but we know they're not good. So I'm going to take the Rams 34-20. Now, this is the game that made me flip coins. I flipped coins, and I told myself 2 out of 3, right? Then I did it again later. Then it became 4 out of 7. I just couldn't pick this game. So how does a team react to losing a game the way that the Bears lost to Washington last week? How do you react to that? How do you recover from that? Caleb played a good fourth quarter against Washington, but the whole rest of the game, he was nowhere to be found. The Cardinals are the hardest team for me to peg, because when I think about the Cardinals, I think every game I picked them this year to win, they lost. And it was just, that team is just hard for me because Kyler Murray is such an up and down player. Now he makes big plays. Everything the Cardinals do, they win these games, usually comes down to a last-second field goal. The Bears need this game because Detroit's going to keep winning. Green Bay's right behind them. And, by the way, where the hell did Minnesota come from? So Chicago can't take a game off either. The Bears still haven't given up 21 points yet this season, going all the way back to last November. All right, no coin flip. I'm going to take the Cardinals, 23-21. I'm not going to say it's a last-second field goal, but it's going to be a close enough game for that. Jags and Eagles. Doug Peterson, your time is running out. Let's just leave it at that. The other hard game to pick this week, Chargers and Browns, because I don't want to drink the Kool-Aid. Jameis is my guy. Florida State, he came out last week against the Ravens and showed that he should have been starting from the beginning, but they paid Deshaun Watson too much money to put him on the bench. So I expect this to be a defensive battle. Ladd McConkey is becoming the star of the Chargers, So Justin Herbert lost his receivers. Keenan Allen's gone. Mike Williams is gone. Waiting for somebody to step up. McConkey is coming on. It took a few weeks, but he's a rookie. Quentin Johnson is back this weekend. So that'll give him another target, a big target that they might need against somebody like, say, Denzel Ward, provided that the concussion is all cleared up. And that guy, I'm telling you, like, I know I've been talking about Tua for the last month about how this guy needs to retire and how I want him. No, Denzel Ward needs to retire because he has had the number of concussions that I act like Tua had. I just don't want Tua to get to that point. But Joey Bosa, questionable. Anything surprising there? So this game is going to come down to, is Jim Harbaugh going to go for the jugular? Is he going to try to win the game, or is he just going to try to not lose the game? We saw this a couple of weeks ago against Arizona on Monday Night Football. They had a chance to go down the field, and put the game, or not put the game away, but put some pressure on the Cardinals to have to go score a touchdown. And they wouldn't call any plays to go down the field. So Justin Herbert, I think, has a chance to remind us of how talented we think he is. But I'm going to go ahead and trust the Browns. Before the season started, my thought on the Browns was, if Deshaun Watson can just play halfway decent, the Browns are a playoff team. But he couldn't do that. Jameis showed last week. He showed the world who Cedric Tillman is. So the problem that I have, though, even though I'm picking the Browns, is that Jameis will take the risk against a defense like this that he probably shouldn't take the risk against. But I'm gonna give the Browns a bone here, so to speak, pause, and I'm gonna go, 15-12, weird ass score. That's how I feel about it. Bucks and Chiefs. Monday Night Football, I'm skipping around a little bit because I know Sunday Night Football, but Chiefs and the Bucks, undefeated Chiefs. Got Denver next week. I'm waiting for that matchup. But Tampa Bay can't stop anybody right now. Their secondary has been hurt for the last couple of weeks, and even when the secondary was healthy, it still didn't play as if it was healthy. So I expect Kansas City to have an explosion this week. Pause. Because Kansas City's been kind of dinking and dunking up and down the field. Pacheco's out. They had to bring back Kareem Hunt. I think he's going to have a big game Monday night. And by the way, Pacheco might be back next week. But I think that Tampa is just too hurt right now. Mike Evans still out, obviously. Godwin out for the year. They got nothing. So I'm going to go with the Chiefs 30-13. All right, Sunday Night Football. We talked about, me and Mr. Logical, we talked about Anthony Richardson the other day. Bench coming off of 10 for 32. That's a real stat line. 10 for 32, 175 yards. And I saw in that game against the Texans the most Anthony Richardson stat you could ever see, right? He was 5 of 19 for 87 yards. How does that work? But you know what? Out with the new, in with the old. So Joe Flacco last year, we made this big deal about him throwing 13 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. That's all we needed from Deshaun Watson over the first couple of games of the season, I guess. But Joe Flacco has been a leader. He's a Super Bowl champion. The Colts respect him. And I think that even though Anthony Richardson is obviously disappointed in being benched, I think that he can learn a lot from Joe Flacco if he allows himself to. Even though I wonder, because I heard Anthony Richardson say how he didn't necessarily get the word about his benching in a forthcoming way. He didn't get it right away. So I wonder if this was the owner sticking his his big nose into the team's business and making the decision from upstairs. So Minnesota has TJ Hawkinson coming back. Minnesota has Brian Flores. Anthony Richardson, right? You could run the ball. You could improvise. Joe Flacco, none of that. Statue, sitting duck, waiting to get hit, right? So the pressure is coming. And like I said, 13 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. They're going to find a way, so don't trust Flacco against this defense. Minnesota's getting TJ Hawkinson back. They're on a 2-game losing streak. Both of them 1-possession games. But I think the true thing, so when Flacco got the start, I initially wanted to go with the Colts, and then I said to myself, Kevin O'Connell is going to have a field day with Gus Bradley. So in that secondary for Indianapolis, nondescript, maybe worse than Tampa's. So I'm going to take Minnesota, and I'm going to take Minnesota big. I'm talking about 33-16. I don't know what the Colts are going to do, offensively against that defense, and I don't think they have the defense to stop them. So, of course, Dallas Mike, man, the Cowboys, is it over? We asked that question about Miami. I'm asking that question about Dallas now. I was hopeful that Deron Bland would play this weekend. He's not. Micah Parsons is still out. The problem is the Dallas offense. They looked good in the second half against the 49ers last week. But what's the true Dallas offense? They can't run the ball. But, Dak is a top 5 quarterback. So you would think that they could get a little bit more production out of that position. But Dallas receivers can't get separation. CeeDee Lamb, as Dallas Mike would have he doesn't run the routes right. So that's a problem. But when I look at Atlanta, do they have the necessary things for me to just sit up here and say Atlanta's going to win this game, Dallas doesn't have a chance? Is Kyle Pitts back? He's been performing the last couple of weeks. I guess all it took was a good quarterback. Think about that, franchises. But, the Falcons are 2-3 at home this year. So I don't even know if it's not called the Georgia Dome anymore, but the compressor, as I call it, has not been good for the Falcons. The last time they played a home game there, they lost by 20 to Seattle. Look, Dallas can't lose this game. This is the way that I think about this game. And this is not very football. This is not football analysis. But this is the way I break down this game. Throughout history, we have seen the Falcons struggle with prosperity. If the Falcons have a chance to take a commanding lead on a division, on an opponent, they don't. I look at this the same way I looked at Baltimore in week 3 when they went down to Dallas. The whole reason I picked Baltimore that day, they can't start 0-3. They can't start 0-3. So that's the way I'm looking at Dallas right now. Even though Dallas Mike doesn't necessarily think that they're a super talented team, they're enough talented to win this game. And if you need something that sounds more like football analysis, Kirk Cousins against the Cowboys. Don't trust it. There you go. Pats and Titans. Woo! Woo! The school of the poor versus the broken school. I don't know what to do with this game. We're waiting on one word for Drake May. He got the concussion last week. If not, we're looking at Jacoby Brissett with Joe Milton as the backup. Is Will Levis going to play? We do know that he's going to start whenever he does come back because the Titans are raising their young quarterback the right way. Mr. Logical in the building. Holla back. Saying, did y'all win the championship or what? The Titans, these are two teams that want to tank. But the Titans defense is trying to do everything in their power to not tank. Number 1 in total defense, as I mentioned earlier. The Patriots can't score. So Jacoby Brissett did lead a 75-yard drive against the Jets last week. Now, what I did like last week, and if Mason Rudolph starts again, maybe we should like this, because Calvin Ridley showed up last week finally. We had an APB out on him, and he said, you know what? Here's 10 catches and 143 yards for you. And all I say is, do it again. So this is crazy because, Will Levis, when he's playing, he's completing 66% of his passes, even though all we remember is all his fuck-ups. You know what I mean? Like Mason Rudolph only at 59%. But Mason Rudolph averages 2 yards more per completion than Will Levis does. So as I said back in week 3, start Mason Rudolph, even though, you got to raise your quarterback. You got to take the bumps. So I'm going to go with the Titans to win this game, even though I will warn there is one thing that might hurt the Titans in this game. Every team that has played the Detroit Lions this season has lost their next game. So, but I'm gonna trust the Titans to get this win, 20-17. So, we're gonna see, this week has some good games, has some tight games, some good matchups. That should go a long way in letting us know what the next quarter of the season will look like. But of course, it's my favorite time of the show. No, it's not Prize Picks. This ain't that show. But it is Upset Alert. Upset Alert. So let's take it right from the top. Now let me explain this one more again. The Upset Alert means that the underdog is going to cover. And then I'm going to give you my actual upset, my outright upsets. So let's take it. Upset Alert. Ole Miss is going down to a place that humbled Nico. Remember that a couple of weeks ago, and that was my upset alert back then. 19-14 win over Tennessee. Arkansas, their coach is fighting for his job. Ole Miss, I just can't trust. They're not playing Wake Forest and Furman anymore. When I look at Ole Miss, I see a team full of talent, but they're too reliant on Trey Harris at wide receiver. He's been banged up this season. So when he doesn't play well or doesn't play, the offense goes back to the 1960s. Last week against Oklahoma, we saw Ole Miss jump out early, and Oklahoma they were moving the ball. They couldn't score. Taylor Green is going to take advantage of that. So don't be surprised if Arkansas wins that game. Texas Tech, with their kicker with the MAGA, written on his shirt or whatever he did last week. All these politics in sports. Keep the politics out my sport! But Texas Tech against Iowa State. Wyoming and New Mexico. Yes, I'm a sicko like that. And then, of course, I brought this up the other night. Vanderbilt is going into Auburn, Alabama, a.k.a. West Georgia. Diego Pavia is coming in at quarterback. Jerry Kill on the staff. Tim Beck, the offensive coordinator. Why do I bring up those coaches? Because they were all with Diego Pavia last year at New Mexico State when New Mexico State walked into Jordan-Hare Stadium and walked out 31-10 winners in one of the biggest upsets I've ever seen. I know we talk about Appalachian State and all that, but New Mexico State? So Diego Pavia, he's a little banged up, but he has Vanderbilt playing above their heads. You saw him last week against Texas. I know they got a late touchdown that made the game look closer than it actually was, but they played hard. They played well. They played better than most Vanderbilt teams that we've seen in the last 10 years, probably since James Franklin. So Vandy gets a win. They're going bowling. So I'm going to take them to cover. We'll see what happens. 6.5 on that spread. Now, the actual upsets, I promise. I ain't got nothing against you, Lincoln Riley, but give me the Huskies. I'm taking Washington over USC. I'm taking Oklahoma State. I'm going to trust them one more time against Arizona State. This ACC matchup, this is it, right? Everybody talking about Miami, undefeated. Everybody's talking about Clemson, undefeated in the conference. Bad loss to Georgia. But, SMU, undefeated in conference. Pitt, undefeated in conference. Eli Holstein just keep pulling rabbits out the hat. They were down to West Virginia. They came back and won. They were down to Cincinnati, and they came back and won. This team is just battle-tested. And as good as SMU has been, I answered your question, 1997. So here we go. And at the end of the day, I think that they're just going to do enough to win the game on the road. They're going to score on, Reed is going to get off. Mumfield is going to get off. Kevin Jennings is coming off of an injury, so he might be a little nicked up. And it's not that I think SMU is bad, obviously, but we'll see. TCU over Baylor. The big one I'll reveal in my preview. Arizona over UCF, and this is one of those dumb ones. Remember last week when BYU was a 2.5-point underdog against UCF? That was whatever. This week, you got Minnesota as a 2-point favorite over Illinois, so I'm taking the Illini. Now, let's go to Happy Valley. You talk about a game of pressure. Which coach has the most pressure in this game, James Franklin or Ryan Day? Now, the easy answer is James Franklin. He's 1-9 against Ohio State. I think they'll jump up to number 2 if they beat Ohio State. I think Oregon's going to stay number 1 and probably not lose in the regular season. Penn State, 1-9. Like I said, James Franklin 1-9 against Ohio State. Ryan Day is 2-7 against top 10 teams. But you know what the problem with that stat is? That's fine if you're Vanderbilt. That's fine if you're Arizona State or Wake Forest. But usually when Ryan Day loses to these top 5 teams, he's in the top 5 too. When he loses to the top 10 teams, he's in the top 5. So we can't even use the excuse of you're playing a better team. You're Ohio freaking State. Nobody has more talent than you, not named Georgia. And this year, you might have them beat. So, but the reason that Ryan Day, I think, is the answer to this question is because if Ohio State loses this game, their playoff chances are in danger. Not really. They'll get in with 2 losses. But if you lost 2, you could lose 3. If you lost 2 with this talent, with the pressure around Ryan Day, you could see the team quit. But the reason that I bring that up is because you still got Indiana undefeated in conference. They're going to East Lansing tomorrow. I think they'll win that game. Curtis Rourke is back. Then they got Michigan next week. Michigan hasn't looked good. I'm not saying Indiana going to beat them right now. But Michigan, that's not going to surprise you if Indiana does beat Michigan. But then guess what? Indiana plays Ohio State the week after that. So whoever set up Indiana's schedule knew what they were doing, Michigan and Ohio State back-to-back. But anyway, so Ohio State needs this game for playoff purposes, at-large purposes, because if Penn State wins this game, we might be looking at a Penn State-Oregon Big Ten title game. Ohio State's not getting there. So think about this. It's all about national titles at Ohio State. But you lost to Michigan the last 2 years. They won the national title. They've won the Big Ten the last 2 years. And you can't win the conference title this year? Now, granted, you could get into the 12-team playoff, go on a hot run, win the national title. Not likely if it plays out that way. But 2 years ago up in Happy Valley, that was the year where a lot of people started to pick Penn State. And JTT took over that game and got to the quarterback. He left his imprint on that game. The question that I have in this game is not can Penn State win. It's can Penn State wake up in the fourth quarter, because every game in the last 4 years that they've played, Penn State is coming to the fourth quarter within single digits, and then Ohio State just runs away. Last year, Ohio State had this guy named Marvin Harrison Jr., the Nittany Lion killer. He gone. But when I go back to last year, I'm thinking about the second quarter, 3-3 game. Curtis Jacobs picks up a fumble, Kyle McCord fumble, runs it to the house. It gets called back for defensive holding in the secondary. So that's a 3-3 game, I said. Ohio State scored 3 plays later or so, went up 10-3. That changed the whole momentum of the game. So Ohio State's coming off of a bad game against Nebraska last week where they averaged 2.1 yards per carry. Their left tackle is out for the season. The backup got injured. So now, instead of JTT, I'm focusing on Abdul Carter of Penn State. Can he get to the quarterback? Penn State's running game. Can they do enough and have enough balance to keep Ohio State off kilter? Now, we got word that Drew Aller's going to play. But that was the question all week. And I honestly thought that they would be okay if Pribula played, because he brings the dimension of the legs to the game. Penn State, for some reason, when I watch them and when I look at them on film, they look so slow. But they're not. But I just want to see how they look against Ohio State, because Ohio State definitely has the athlete advantage. We got some revenge games here. Will Howard from Pennsylvania didn't get offered by Penn State. Julian Fleming over at Ohio State. He was a wide receiver, lost in the shuffle with all the great receivers that they had over the last couple of years. Came to Penn State, was supposed to be the answer at wide receiver. 10 catches. Penn State still doesn't have a wide receiver, but they do have Tyler Warren. And if you remember him from the USC game, Ohio State better look out and put Caleb Downs on him. Like, you spied a quarterback? No, you're spying Tyler Warren. You're spying a tight end. I'm sorry. So when I look at this, it's so hard because my gut is telling me to pick Penn State. And everything that I see says Ohio State. It says trust what you know until further notice. But you know what? Ain't nobody ever been successful that way. Give me the Nittany Lions, the eye of the lion. Give it here. 30-24. I think the difference in this game for as far as why Penn State will win is going to be, I've been talking about him all season, Andrew Kotnicki, the offensive coordinator, came in from Kansas. You know why? Because James Franklin is a risk-averse coach. And now he doesn't have a reason to be, or he has a coach that can design these plays but be big in the run game. So these risk-averse coaches might like that. So I'm going Penn State to win this game and put Ohio State in a bad place. So then you got an ACC matchup. Louisville going down to Clemson. This is the first, in my opinion, first opponent of relevance or decency that Clemson has played since Georgia. I mean, what did it for you? Was it Appalachian State? Was it Florida State? Was it Wake? Was it, who was it that Clemson has beaten so far this season? That everybody just is penciling in Clemson to the ACC championship game, penciling them in to the 12-team playoff. I don't see it that way. Louisville is battle-tested, on the other hand. They've already played Miami last week. They played SMU already. They played at Notre Dame. They've been within one score in each of those games. This is going to be a lot of yards, a lot of points. Clemson averages 490, Louisville 460. The problem with Louisville is their brains are better than their talent. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that the coach, Brian Brom, will coach it up. He will scheme it up. But I just don't think Louisville is that talented. I know they have Ja'Cory Brooks at wide receiver coming over from Alabama. I know they got Tyler Shuck from Texas Tech, but up until this season, he's always been hurt. Louisville has never beat Clemson. Clemson 7-0 against Louisville since they joined the ACC, 9-0 all time. So my question here is, can Tyler Shuck do enough? He's ninth in the FBS in passing yards. Cade Klubnik has come on and looked a lot better. But like I said, the competition. So I'm going to take Clemson. I'm going to take Louisville to cover the 10.5. But I'm going to take Clemson. I think this is a high-scoring game, and I think we're looking at 34-30. Now, remember that big upset I talked about during the upset alert? Well, here you go. There's a team out here that is undefeated in the SEC, and they're the only undefeated team in the SEC. They knocked off LSU last week. Freshman backup quarterback came in, Marcel Reed, had a game. I mean, his first snap was first and goal. I mean, you can't draw it up any better than that, right? So, I'm not even doing the trap game thing right now. I'm not even trying to do you're coming off of LSU, the big win. Everybody's going to tell you how great. No, I'm not doing none of that. I just think that South Carolina, Dylan Stewart, Kyle Kennard, combined 13 sacks. I think they're going to get movement against this A&M offensive line. On the other side of the ball, A&M is going to punch South Carolina on defense. Lenore Sellers, it's in your hands. So when I think about this, you always take the quarterback that can run. Can he break a big play? Can he keep a play alive? But South Carolina has Lenore Sanders, so I don't think Marcel Reed is going to threaten them in that way because they practice against that all the time. They are, the Gamecocks, third in the SEC. In takeaways, they are third against the run, which is what A&M is going to try to establish. Beamer ball, I expect to see something. Fake field goal, block punt. I'm going to see something. Now, back to A&M. Is Marcel Reed the answer? He's the better quarterback. He's just young. So I think you want to go with Wigman because allegedly he's a leader, but I don't see it through his play at least. So, you know what? I'm going to take South Carolina. I know Cocktober is over, but I guess Cockvember is going to become a thing. So give me South Carolina 23-19. Then we go down to the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. And I know they don't like us using cocktail anymore, but we're going to use cocktail. Put a pause on that if I need to. Florida is in a similar situation as A&M. DJ Lagway is probably a better quarterback than Graham Mertz. And I was about to say luckily, but I'm going to change my word there. The difference is that Graham Mertz is out for the season. A&M has Wigman sitting around there still able to play, but Mertz is gone for the season. So this is DJ Lagway's show, and that's going to be an NFL quarterback. But the craziest stat, right? They played Kentucky in their last game before the bye, and I love how these SEC teams take the byes before their big games. But DJ Lagway against Kentucky had 4 touchdown passes. He averaged 37 yards per completion. Where they do that at? When I look at Georgia, Carson Beck has been given the ball up. He's supposed to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country, one of the first quarterbacks taken in the NFL draft. Now, when he's not throwing interceptions, Georgia's receivers are dropping passes. Borderline FSU-like. But this game is going to come down to the former Gator, Trevor Etienne, brother of Travis. He was a Gator last year. Turncoat went to Georgia. He's going to run the ball up and down Florida because that's what Florida cannot do. They cannot stop the run. Now, when I look at this game, I look at this 16.5-point spread, and I know over the last couple of years, Georgia has been a machine. But this is not that same Georgia, and I know we saw what Georgia did to Texas a couple of weeks ago. So, as Stephen A. would say, I'm not going to cast any aspersions on them. But what I will do is say that DJ Lagway is going to keep them on their toes. He's going to make some plays in the run game. He's going to make some plays in the pass game. And I think Carson Beck is going to have a game where he throws a pick or two. So give me Georgia to win, but I'm taking the Gators to cover the 16.5. So I'm going to call this one 27-17. All right. Finally, the last time Oregon went to Michigan, to the Big House, it was 2007, the week after. Michigan fans, do I need to complete that? The week after they lost to Appalachian State. Oregon walked out of that game with a shutout. All right, so that has nothing to do with this game. I just wanted to say that. So, Jack Tuttle retired. So, Michigan is stuck now back to Davis Warren. You might see some Alex Orji in some packages, but for all intents and purposes, Davis Warren is going to be the quarterback. Now, what I do like for Michigan in this game, if there's anything to like, is that running game. The key is keep the ball out of Oregon's hands, and no matter how much you say it, Dylan Gabriel's just not going to be a Heisman candidate to me. Now, is Will Johnson going to play, the best corner in the country? He's been banged up the last few weeks. If he doesn't, that's the difference between Michigan losing by 14 and losing by 28. What you want from me? So the one stat that stands out for me about Michigan, and this tells you how bad their quarterbacks are, but maybe it's not all the quarterbacks once I finish this stat. The only teams in the country, you paying attention, Cowboy Mike? The only teams in the country that have less receiving yards from wide receivers than Michigan, Army and Navy. This used to be the Iowa joke. What has happened in Ann Arbor? So give me Oregon. I don't want to be disrespectful, but I'm looking at 38-14. So real quick, some random things that stands out to me. With a win this weekend in East Lansing, like I mentioned earlier, Indiana will be 9-0 for the first time in school history. Kurt Cignetti, National Coach of the Year. I know all you Coach Prime fans going to come at me for that, and he deserves it as well. But this is Indiana we're talking about. All right. They come too far. Don't take your eyes off the prize. Got Michigan next week, and then you got the big one with Ohio State. Everything's in front of you, Indiana. The playoff is within reach. But if you lose just one single solitary game, I fear that it won't be just because your name is Indiana. That's where a 2-loss LSU might jump over you. Due to brand, due to name, due to conference. But we'll see. Manny Diaz, head coach at Duke now. Last year was Penn State's defensive coordinator. If you remember, he was the head coach at Miami some time ago. So this is a matchup of former coach versus new coach. Mario Cristobal was the guy that took his job. Miami favored by 20.5. We'll see. I like that Duke defense. We'll see. And Cam Ward looked very, very marginal against Florida State last week. And I know Florida State's got speed. They got the same Florida talent that Miami does. Just saying. The last time I brought up this in, upset alert, right? Ole Miss and Arkansas. The last time Ole Miss won in Vietnam was 2008. And finally, we talked about that Illinois-Minnesota game where Minnesota is favored by 2.5 for some strange reason. Brett Bielema is 10-0 against Minnesota, and that's at 2 different schools. Remember, he was back at Wisconsin. So, look, I'm looking forward to all this football. The NBA is back. We're going to bring some NBA talk to you in the upcoming weeks as well. I don't want to go doom and gloom on the Denver Nuggets, but, just keep your eye on them. So, on Tuesday, Election Day, get out there and vote. Just in case. I ain't a hypocrite. You see that? I went out there today and did what I had to do. I ain't going to tell you who to vote for. I ain't going to tell you who you should vote for. I'm just going to tell you to get out there and vote. Because if you don't allow your voice to be heard, don't speak. But on that note, Tuesday, myself and Mr. Logical with all the reaction. Sports Reports is ordered. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate. Do all the free things. Do all the good things. I love you, people. Have a great weekend. Enjoy some football. Peace.